Hello everyone and welcome to our Unified Modeling Language lecture series. I am Nadia Patel. Let's get started. We are in continuation to Introduction to UML and UML Diagrams Part 1. I have already uploaded one or two videos on introduction of UML. Now let us get started with what exactly the diagrams are all about. I gave you one lecture on what is the classification of diagram, and in today's lecture we are going to go through the first diagram, which is the use case diagram. We are going to go through the concept of use case diagram. We will see working of use case diagram, and finally the purpose of use case diagram. With today's lecture, you will understand what use case diagram is all about. So let us get started. So this was our classification, which I've already explained you. Our UML diagrams get divided into two major parts, which is one structure diagram and the second behavior diagram. I've already explained some points about structure diagram and behavior diagram. For today's lecture, we are going to go through the first behavior diagram, which is the use case diagram. It is by far the most important diagram, you can say, or the first diagram or the preliminary diagram which gets drawn in the development of any system. Whenever we are speaking in terms of unified modeling language, do not keep in mind that it is applied, these notations are applied in the development of software only, but these notations are applied in the development of any real life system. It can be building a house, it can be building an aircraft, it can be building a software. So when you're applying these notations, they get applied to any system's development. So the classification says that the behavior diagram, that is the diagrams which are going to give us the functioning of our system, are the behavior diagrams. And within these diagrams, the use case diagram is the most simplest, the one which helps us to explain the entire system to our users or to our co-colleagues who are going to work on the system. These diagrams are by far the most easiest ones to draw and read and understand. Anybody can read and understand them, and let us study this diagram in today's lecture. So let us go through the introduction of use case diagram, which is the behavioral diagram of UML. Use case diagram models, or the diagram, describes the behavior of a system functionality with respect to end users, analysts, developers, and testers. If you go through the list of users, end users, analysts, developers, and testers, does this remind you of something? A long list of users, does it remind you something? SRS. SRS was something which was used by a range of people, starting from the developers, the testers, the people who are doing the coding, the one who is going to provide the maintenance, and of course, our end users and customer as well. So, SRS was one document which was referred by everyone. Use case diagram is one diagram which is going to be used by everyone. So you can use this diagram to explain end users your system. You can use this diagram to explain analyst your system. You can use this diagram to explain developers and testers what our system is all about. This diagram gives us a complete system as a preview. When we say preview, we see everything in one part, or you can say, if you say previewing a document, when you preview a document, we see complete entire document in one screen. So this is one diagram which is going to give us a preview, a complete overview of our complete system in one diagram. As I have already told you that UML diagrams or UML's technique of working gets divided into model, view, and diagram. So the smallest part is shown using a diagram. But UML diagram is one such diagram which gives us the complete overview of our system. Use case diagram is dynamic in nature. and gives overview of a system's interaction with the user. As it is dynamic in nature, it is going to change with respect to time. So if you are drawing this diagram in requirements analysis phase, it is going to be different. If you're drawing this diagram after you have understood the requirements and you're in the design phase, it is going to change. If you're drawing this diagram in the coding phase, when you have understood the requirements, you've got a design of your system, it is going to change. If you're drawing this diagram in the testing phase, where your system is complete now, you know how your system is working and you're just checking the working of your system, the diagram is going to change. So it has got its dynamic nature and it gives us systems interaction. Very important term. We are going to show interaction of our system with the user. For showing interaction of a system, use case requires some initiators. Now, who are these initiators? Initiators are someone or something who are going to initiate the interaction. I'm using the word someone or something who are going to start the interaction or start the communication. They represent high level functionalities. It contains a set of use cases which represent different ways a system can be used by different user. Different users. Users is something which is coming in every single point. So use case diagram are going to contain set of use cases. Now what are these use cases then? Use cases are also known as processes. Now we know process is something which is involved and input. It is going to do some working, some manipulation and produce an output. So process is something which is changing input to output, or you can say transforming input to output. So use cases are these processes. It also contains actors which help in the initiation of use cases. I told you that we are going to require some initiators. Initiators are going to be someone or something, so that someone are the actors. Actor is an external entity outside the system interacting with the system. We can understand the major inputs of our system given by the users. Now let us go through the working of use case diagram. Use case diagram partitions the transactions, or you can say processes, in such a way that each transaction performs a useful action. Now let us go through the words. The first word was use case diagram contains use cases. Use cases were also known as processes, and now we are using the word transaction. Now what is transaction? Transaction is again a process, or you can see a small procedure which requires one input. There is some working going on, there is some transformation going on, there is some manipulation going on, and it gets transformed into the output. So transaction is again a working, or you can say small procedure. So in use case diagram, we are going to focus in majorly finding these transactions. One, find these transactions, and the second, find the initiators or actors, or that something or someone who are going to carry out these transactions. Every transaction may change or exchange single or multiple messages between the user and the system. Now let us go through the next part. We said that we are going to show the interaction between user and our system. These interaction can be a single message or multiple messages. But between whom? Between again the user of the system and our system. It forms sequence of interactions between user and the system. Interaction contains one main line sequence. So this is small working about use case diagram. Interaction is also known as Communication between user and the system. This is very important. So focusing on use case diagram, we should find or search or majorly keep our eye on transactions, or you can say processes, or find use case, that is some procedure which is present in our system. Find that. Second thing, find the actor or initiator who is going to carry out this process. And the third thing, find the communication between these actors and our system. Let us go through the purpose of use case diagram. Using use case diagram, you can gather the system's needs or requirement. Use case diagram recognizes the internal as well as external factors that influence the system, that is, that make the system alive or that make the system active. They carry out interaction or they carry out the communication. Use case diagram represents the interaction between the actors and the use cases. So these are the three purposes of our use case diagram. One is gathering the system's need. The second is it recognizes internal as well as external factors that influence the system. The third thing, it represents the interaction between the actors and the use cases. Now let us go through the symbols used in use case diagram. So the first symbol is the use case symbol. If you go through this symbol, this is an oval shape and there is something written which is use case name. You're supposed to draw this oval shape and definitely label it with what process it is or with what use case it is. The next is the symbol of actors. This is our actor. Okay, so if you observe keenly, this is a simple symbol of stick man. It is known as the stick man symbol. Now, one thing which you should completely avoid is do not glorify this symbol. Do not draw eyes, nose, ears, face, hairs, clothes, and etc. things. Do not glorify it by adding colors or something. It is completely no. What you're supposed to do is keep it simple. These are notations. These are something which are standard notations. I have not generated them. So we are not supposed to change them by adding fingers or toes or anything. So do not do these glorifications. Keep it simple. These are like syntaxes of our language which we use. So this is a syntax, treat it as a syntax. The next is associations, or you can say line. These are also known as links. So this is something which is going to connect our actor and use case. So this is a simple line. Again, if you observe this symbol, it has not got any arrowhead. Like my pointer here is having one arrowhead which I use to point something. So this line is not having an arrowhead. So this is one simple line without a head or a tail. Next is systems boundary. As the word boundary is used, we can understand by the word itself, everything should happen or take place inside this boundary. There should be nothing outside the boundary, but there is some part which remains outside the boundary. We are going to go through every notation in detail. So let us now just get familiar to notations, and then one by one we will study every notation in detail, because we are going to bring these notations in practice and draw some diagrams. And of course you are going to include this diagram in your project or software's documentation as well. So the last diagram is the package symbol. As the word package is given, it is a collection. Package is a collection of what? It is a collection of use cases together. You're going to draw one rectangle. You're going to put all the use cases, the related use cases together inside this. And do not forget to give your package a good name which can define this correctly. So these are the only basic notations which we are going to use. There are some add-ons, which is the relationship into use cases. So that part has got some added notations, but these are the basic notation by using which you can draw a good use case diagram, which gives the complete overview of our system. So these are the basic ones and the complete ones. The added diagrams will be explained into the next lecture, where we are going to go through every single notation in detail. So this is all about today's lecture. I hope you understood the concept of use case diagram. We are going to focus on these use cases, in finding these use cases, and in finding these actors. Once you have found these two, connecting them and organizing them becomes easy. So I hope you understood. I hope it was easy to understand. If there are some disturbances in voice, please excuse me, and good for learning. All the best. Thank you for listening.